The stars hung cold and distant in the blackness of space, but aboard the horizon, the tension was palpable. Commander Ilara stood on the bridge, her gaze fixed on the massive Virelian fleet arrayed before them. Sleek, angular ships, all sharp edges and silence, moved with an eerie precision that unsettled even the most seasoned veterans. The Virelians had arrived without fanfare, their ships drifting into human-controlled space like shadows. They made no demands, uttered no threats, only watched. For months, human scientists and diplomats debated the meaning of this quiet presence. Theories abounded, none comforting. Was it a warning? A prelude to invasion? Or an invitation? Ilara had been handpicked for this mission because she was known for keeping her composure under pressure. Years of exploration, diplomacy, and combat had honed her instincts. Yet nothing prepared her for the cold weight of those alien ships looming over the horizon. Her comm crackled. "Commander, the Virelian ambassador is requesting your presence on their flagship," the voice said, clipped and formal. She nodded, though the officers around her saw only a calm mask. "Understood. Prepare the shuttle. I'm going in." As Ilara boarded the sleek, silent shuttle, a low hum vibrated through the hull. No chatter, no background music, only the steady pulse of machinery. The shuttle detached and glided toward the Virelian flagship, a monolithic structure that seemed carved from the void itself. Inside the ship, the air was cooler, cleaner, almost sterile. Ilara was led into a vast chamber where the ambassador awaited. Keth was unlike any being she had ever met. His skin was smooth and gray with a subtle metallic sheen that caught the soft light. His eyes were large and dark, reflecting the room like pools of liquid shadow. He sat motionless, limbs folded precisely, as if carved from stone. "Commander Ilara." His voice was calm, lacking any inflection. "We observe. We do not speak without purpose." Ilara stepped forward, her boots echoing softly on the polished floor. "I'm here to establish peace, to understand your intentions." Keth's gaze held hers, unblinking and unreadable. Peace is an inefficient concept. Emotions compromise logic. We seek understanding through observation. Ilara felt a chill. The Virelians' reputation for cold logic and emotional detachment was well known, but hearing it in person was different. It was like trying to communicate with a machine designed to process only facts and probabilities. Yet something in Keth's stillness hinted at curiosity beneath the surface, a subtle tension that almost seemed like hesitation. "Then let us begin with understanding," Ilara said. "Tell me why you came." Keth's eyes flickered, the only sign of movement. "To witness, to record, to learn." "Learn what?" "That which cannot be measured. Emotion. The variable in your species' survival." Ilara's heart skipped. The very thing humans were often told made them weak, their emotions, was what the Virelians sought to understand. It was an unexpected vulnerability, a thread she might be able to pull. Suddenly, the room's silence was broken by an alarm. Red lights pulsed sharply. The ambassador's ship shuddered. "We are under attack," Keth said, voice steady. Ilara's training kicked in. "From whom?" "The Andrians. They do not tolerate our presence here." Her mind raced. The Andrians were a brutal warrior race, known for swift and merciless strikes. This was no longer a diplomatic visit. It was a battlefield. "Prepare for evacuation," she ordered. But Keth stood, and for the first time, there was something almost human in his movement, a flicker of urgency, of fear. "Stay close, Commander," he said, voice quieter now. As the ship rocked violently, Ilara realized this mission would demand more than diplomacy. It would demand trust. And maybe, just maybe, the coldest heart could learn to feel. The shuttle dropped through the atmosphere of the barren moon with a shudder, rocks and dust kicking up in the low gravity. Commander Ilara gripped the console tightly, eyes scanning the rugged terrain below. Beside her, Keth remained eerily still, his dark eyes fixed on the rocky outcrop ahead where their team had planned to gather resources. The attack on the flagship had been swift and merciless. The Andrians were notorious for hitting without warning, and the Varelians, despite their advanced technology, had been caught off guard. The Horizon had barely escaped intact, and now the small crew was scattered across this desolate world. Ilara's heart pounded. The mission had shifted from diplomatic engagement to survival. The moon was harsh and unforgiving. No atmosphere to speak of, temperatures that plummeted to deadly lows at night. But there was a chance here, a slim one, to regroup and find answers. "We need to secure the crystal deposits before the Andrians can follow us here," Ilara said, voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding her veins. "Their technology won't work in this environment, but ours will." Keth nodded once. Understood. The two moved cautiously through the jagged landscape. Ilara noticed how Keth's gaze swept constantly, cataloging every detail. The sharp edges of rocks, the eerie silence, the faint traces of unknown energy readings. Despite his cold exterior, he was alert, almost alive. Suddenly, the ground beneath them gave way. Ilara's boots slipped. She reached out instinctively, but the loose soil betrayed her. She fell hard, tumbling down a steep slope and landing with a painful thud in a narrow crevasse. Pain flared in her side. She tried to call out, but her comms had been damaged in the attack. She was alone. Above, Keth's voice cut through the static of the ruined comm. "Ilara, are you there?" She managed a weak nod, wiping dirt from her brow. "I'm okay, but stuck." Without hesitation, Keth peered over the edge, assessing the depth and the jagged rocks below. The Varelians prided themselves on never letting emotion cloud their decisions, yet something flickered in Keth's eyes, a hesitation that quickly hardened into resolve. "This is forbidden," he muttered, "but I will retrieve you." Ilara barely had time to register his words before Keth was descending, carefully lowering himself into the crevasse. His limbs moved with practiced precision, but there was an urgency in his every movement. When he reached her, he extended a hand, smooth, cold, but steady. "Take my hand," he said simply. Ilara grasped it, and for a moment, time slowed. The Varelian's grip was firm but gentle, a strange comfort in the void. He pulled her up, inch by inch, until she was safe on solid ground. They sat side by side, breathing heavily. Ilara looked at Keth, surprised by the spark of something new in his eyes. Concern. "You could have been punished for this," she said quietly. Keth's face was unreadable. "I chose to save you. Because I wish to understand why you take such risks for others." Ilara smiled, despite the ache in her ribs. "Because we're not just logic and survival. We're connection. Hope. Sometimes, saving one life means saving something bigger." Keth stared at her, eyes reflecting an unfamiliar conflict. "Your species is perplexing. Your willingness to embrace pain and uncertainty. It's what makes us strong," Ilara replied. "And maybe that's something you can learn too." A distant rumble shattered the moment. The Andrians were coming. "We need to move," Ilara urged, struggling to her feet. Keth hesitated, then nodded. "Leave the way." As they navigated the harsh terrain together, the fragile bond between human and alien deepened. In this unforgiving wilderness, trust was no longer optional. It was survival. And for the first time, Keth wondered if there was something beyond cold logic worth fighting for. The horizon glowed with distant fire as the Andrian ships tore through the moon's thin atmosphere. Ilara and Keth moved swiftly, shadows against the rocky wasteland. Each step was heavy with the weight of uncertainty, but neither dared to slow. Their small group was scattered like fragile shards after the flagship's destruction. The mission had shifted from exploration and diplomacy to a desperate struggle to survive, and to protect a secret buried beneath the moon's surface. "Why did you save me?" Ilara asked suddenly, breaking the silence as they crouched behind a ridge, scanning the darkening sky. Keth's eyes didn't waver. "Because you challenged everything I believed. Logic demands efficiency. Emotions are liabilities. Yet your actions defy that. Ilara looked at him closely for the first time. The Varelian's face was calm, but his gaze held a flicker of something unfamiliar, curiosity, or perhaps confusion. "You're beginning to feel something," she said softly. He hesitated. "I do not understand it." Their moment was shattered by a sudden explosion. A boulder near their hiding spot shattered into dust, the shockwave sending loose rocks skittering. Andrian patrols were closing in. "We have minutes, maybe less," Ilara said, rising. "There's a cave nearby. It should offer shelter." Keth led the way, moving with precision that betrayed his alien physiology. As they slipped into the cool darkness of the cave, Ilara could feel her pulse slow. For a moment, they were safe. Inside, the silence pressed in. But then, faint flickers of blue light danced along the walls, bioluminescent crystals embedded in the stone. The cave was beautiful, otherworldly. Ilara reached out to touch the glowing mineral. "These crystals are rare," Keth explained. "They store energy. We came here to harvest them before the attack." Ilara nodded, still catching her breath. "They're incredible." Keth's eyes shifted to her, something like hesitation breaking through his stoic mask. "Commander, you speak of emotions as if they are weapons or tools. But what if they are something more? What if they connect us?" Ilara's lips twitched into a faint smile. "They do. They're why we fight, why we survive. Love, hope, even pain, they give meaning." Keth sat down, emotion so casual it surprised Ilara. "Tell me about your people's greatest fear." She thought for a moment. "Loss. Losing the ones we care about. Losing ourselves to darkness." He absorbed that quietly. "I have never feared loss, only failure. But now, I fear losing you." The words hung between them like fragile glass. Before Ilara could respond, the cave trembled. Another explosion rocked the moon, closer this time. The Andrians were relentless. "We can't stay," Ilara urged, rising quickly. "But first, I need to know, why do you hesitate? Why does this matter?" Keth's gaze darkened. "Because you saved me from a fall. And in that moment, I understood something I thought impossible. I felt grateful, fear, concern. These feelings confuse me." Ilara stepped closer. "It's okay to feel confused. It's okay to be vulnerable. That's what makes us strong." Keth looked down, then back up, eyes shining faintly with a strange light. "If feeling this way means risking everything, then I will risk it." Ilara nodded. "Good, because we're only beginning to understand each other." They moved toward the cave's exit, ready to face the dangers outside. Whatever came next, their bond had shifted the impossible. The Varelian who once viewed emotions as flaws was beginning to see them as the greatest strength. As the last blue light faded behind them, Ilara knew one thing for certain. The first alien tear was closer than anyone imagined. The Andrian forces were relentless. Their warships loomed over the moon like dark predators, striking with precision and brutality. The ground shook beneath Ilara and Keth's feet as they scrambled across jagged rocks toward the hidden base where the remaining crew had taken refuge. Ilara's side throbbed with pain from her earlier fall, but adrenaline pushed her forward. She glanced at Keth, who moved with an alien grace, scanning the horizon with unblinking eyes. The tension between them had shifted, no longer just curiosity, but something deeper, fragile, and dangerous. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed through the air. A sniper's laser beam whizzed past them, scorching the rock inches from Ilara's face. "Take cover," Keth barked, pulling her down behind a boulder. Ilara's heart pounded as she peeked over the edge. The Andrians were closing fast, their hunters already hunting. "We can't outrun them," she said grimly. "We need a plan." Keth's dark eyes narrowed. "There is one option, an ancient Firelian device buried beneath this moon. It can disrupt enemy systems, but it requires manual activation." Then we do it, Ilara said without hesitation, even if it means risking ourselves. They moved quickly, avoiding patrols, the tension crackling with every step. The landscape grew more treacherous, the weight of their mission pressing down like a crushing silence between them. At last, they reached the entrance to a subterranean chamber, half buried by rock and dust. Ilara brushed aside the debris, revealing intricate Virelian symbols carved into the metal door. Keth's fingers traced the symbols with reverence. This technology was forbidden, too dangerous to use unless all else fails. Ilara looked at him. We're at that point. Inside, the chamber pulsed with a low hum, the device glowing faintly with an eerie blue light. Keth began working the controls, his movements precise but strained. "We have little time," he said. "The Andrians will find us soon." Ilara's gaze softened as she watched him. "You're doing this for all of us, for humans and Virelians alike." Keth paused, his voice barely above a whisper. "For you, Ilara." Suddenly, the door shook violently. Explosions thundered outside as the Andrians breached the perimeter. "We have company," Ilara warned, drawing her sidearm. Keth's fingers flew over the controls, the machine beginning to power up. But then, the device sparked and faltered. "No," Keth growled. "It's unstable, if I don't stabilize it manually." "You'll have to," Ilara said firmly. "I've got your back." As the Andrians breached the chamber, Keth pressed a hand to the device, channeling energy through his own body. His stoic mask cracked, revealing the strain etched on his features. Ilara fired at the intruders, buying him precious seconds. Her heart ached seeing the alien she had come to trust risking everything. With a final surge, Keth forced the device online. A pulse of energy rippled outward, disabling the Andrians' weapons and communications in the vicinity. The enemy faltered, retreating in confusion. Keth collapsed to the floor, exhausted and trembling. Ilara rushed to his side. "You did it. You saved us." His eyes met hers, dark pools now shimmering with something raw and vulnerable. "I did what I had to," he whispered. Then his voice broke, "because I can no longer deny what I feel." Ilara reached out, taking his hand. "It's okay to feel, Keth. You're not alone." The weight of unspoken emotions hung between them, a fragile bridge spanning two worlds. Outside, the battered survivors rallied, inspired by the unlikely alliance forged in fire and sacrifice. For the first time, the cold logic of the Virelians faced the undeniable power of human emotion. And somewhere deep within Keth, a single tear welled up, silent proof that even the hardest heart can break. The cave was quiet now, except for the ragged breaths of those who had survived the assault. Ilara helped Keth sit against the cold wall, his strength ebbing with each passing moment. The energy device's overload had taken a toll, his usually unflappable composure now shattered. "Ilara," Keth whispered, his voice trembling. "I did not anticipate this feeling." Ilara sat beside him, gently brushing a lock of dust-streaked hair from his forehead. "Emotions don't always come easy. For some, it takes time. You're learning. And that's the hardest part." He looked at her, dark eyes wide with a strange vulnerability. "How do you carry such contradictions, strength and fragility, hope and despair?" "Because that's what makes us human," she said softly. "We survive not despite our emotions, but because of them." Outside, the storm of battle had passed, but within the cave, a different war was unfolding, a war between the past Keth had known and the feelings now stirring within him. "We must move," Ilara said after a moment. "The Andrians will regroup, and this refuge won't hold forever." Keth nodded, rising slowly. His movements were measured but weighted with new purpose. As they prepared to leave, Ilara noticed Keth hesitating at the cave entrance. "What is it?" He stared into the darkness beyond, voice low. "There is a message hidden beneath this moon, encoded in the crystal veins. It speaks of a choice, of sacrifice and survival. It may hold the key to ending this conflict. Elara's curiosity piqued. Then we find it. Together. Their journey took them deeper into the moon's labyrinthine tunnels, where glowing crystals cast eerie light on the walls. The air grew colder, thinner, but neither faltered. Hours passed in tense silence until they reached a vast chamber, its ceiling lost in shadow. At its center, a crystalline prism pulsed with energy, humming softly. Keth stepped forward, reverence replacing his usual stoicism. This is the heart of the message. He touched the prism, and suddenly, holographic images flickered to life. Scenes of an ancient war, the destruction of a world, and a solemn vow by the Virelian elders to seek peace at all costs. Elara watched, stunned. This wasn't just a weapon or a tool. It's a reminder, a promise. Keth's voice cracked with emotion. A promise I nearly forgot. As the message played, the cave trembled. The Andrians had found them again. Elara, we must activate the prism's full power. It can send a signal, a call for ceasefire. But it requires a sacrifice, Keth warned. One who chooses to bind their life force to the message. Elara's eyes met his. Then it's your choice. He shook his head. No, it must be yours. No, she said firmly. We started this together. The decision hung heavy between them. With a deep breath, Keth stepped back. Then I will stand guard. Protect you until the end. Elara placed a hand on the prism, feeling its hum vibrate through her veins. Closing her eyes, she whispered, for hope, for peace. Energy surged through her, and the prism's light expanded, sending a beacon of truth across the stars, a plea for understanding beyond war. Outside, the Andrians halted, their weapons lowering in confusion. Elara collapsed, drained but triumphant. Keth rushed to her side, worry etched across his features. You did it, he said, voice breaking. She smiled weakly. We did it. In that moment, Keth's mask finally fell away. A single tear escaped, tracing a silent path down his cheek. For the first time, an alien cried over a human, not just for loss, but for something infinitely greater, connection. The beacon's light stretched across the void, piercing through the darkness like a fragile hope. Elara lay on the cold ground, breath shallow but steady. The energy coursing through her was fading, leaving her weak but alive. Around them, the cavern hummed softly, the prism's glow dimming to a gentle pulse. Keth knelt beside her, eyes wide with worry and something more profound, an unspoken bond that had grown beyond logic. Elara, he said quietly, your sacrifice has awakened something in all of us. The Andrians have ceased their attack. For now, there is peace. She managed a faint smile, reaching for his hand. The contact was electric, two beings from different worlds united by shared pain and hope. I always believed there was more to your kind, Keth admitted. Strength born from vulnerability. Elara's eyes fluttered closed briefly. It's what makes us human, and it's why we fight. The stillness between them was shattered by a soft rumble, a signal from the surviving crew. Reinforcements were coming. The tide of the battle was turning. Keth helped her to her feet, steadying her as they prepared to leave the chamber. Will this peace last? Elara asked, uncertainty shadowing her voice. Keth looked toward the prism's fading light. I do not know, but now we have a choice, to embrace what we have learned, or to return to old ways. Outside, the moon's harsh landscape seemed less hostile under the glow of distant stars. The human and Virelian survivors gathered, weary but determined. The Andrians, surprisingly, held their ground, waiting. Elara stood before them, her voice carrying across the makeshift camp. We've shown them that we're not just enemies. We're capable of understanding, of compassion. Keth stepped forward, his presence commanding. Our species have been locked in conflict for too long. But today, something changed. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Even among the Andrians, uncertainty flickered. Then, from the shadows, a figure emerged, a tall Andrian commander, his scarred face etched with suspicion and curiosity. "I'm Commander Vrax," he announced, voice rough but calm. "This ceasefire is unexpected. Why should we trust humans or Varelians after so much bloodshed?" Ilara met his gaze steadily. "Because we chose to risk everything for peace. Because sometimes it takes more courage to forgive than to fight." Vrax studied her, then nodded slowly. "Perhaps it is time to seek a new path." A fragile truce was born, not from treaties or treaties alone, but from something far deeper, the raw power of connection between unlikely allies. As the survivors tended wounds and shared stories, Ilara and Keth found a quiet moment beneath the alien sky. "You've changed me," Keth said softly, his dark eyes reflecting the stars. Ilara smiled. "And you've reminded me why I fight." They stood together, two souls bound by experience, by sacrifice, and by the first tear ever shed by an alien over a human. The galaxy might still be full of war and darkness, but now there was a spark that could ignite hope. The fragile peace held, for now. The survivors worked side by side, their mutual exhaustion weaving a tentative camaraderie. Yet beneath the surface, the scars of war ran deep, and the question lingered. Could old wounds truly heal? Ilara walked among the camps, watching as humans, Varelians, and even wary Andrians shared scarce resources and whispered cautious conversations. It was a fragile truce, balanced on the edge of suspicion and hope. Keth approached, his movements measured but softer than before. "There are those who doubt this peace will last," he said, voice low. Ilara nodded. "Fear is a powerful force, but so is hope. We have to believe it can grow." They paused near the glowing crystal deposits, where soft light shimmered like distant stars. Ilara looked at Keth, searching his face for answers. "Do you think your people will accept this change?" she asked. Keth's dark eyes flickered. "The Virelian Council is divided. Many cling to the old ways, seeing emotion as weakness. But others see the strength in what we have found here." A sudden alarm shattered the quiet. The base's sensors detected multiple incoming vessels, Andrian reinforcements, larger and more heavily armed than before. The uneasy truce shattered instantly. "Prepare for battle," Ilara ordered, heart tightening. "We won't survive another assault without fighting back." Keth's gaze met hers, steady and resolute. "Then we fight, not just with weapons, but with what we've learned." As the ships descended, the survivors scrambled into defensive positions. The air crackled with tension, the promise of peace slipping away like sand through their fingers. The first wave struck with brutal force, laser fire and explosions lighting the sky. But the combined forces of humans, Varelians, and even some Andrians who had chosen peace fought fiercely, their unity a shock to their attackers. Ilara led the charge, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Hold the line. For our future." Keth fought beside her, his alien strength turning the tide in moments when hope seemed lost. His every move was a testament to the bond that had grown between them. During a lull, Ilara spotted an Andrian officer struggling beneath debris. Without hesitation, she rushed to help. Keth caught her arm. "It's a trap." Ilara shook her head. "Sometimes, saving one can change many." She freed the officer, who looked up with surprise and fear. "Why?" "Because peace is worth fighting for," she said. The officer nodded slowly, his weapon lowering. The battle raged on, each side pushing to the brink. But the unexpected alliances and newfound understanding began to unravel the Andrians' resolve. As dawn broke over the scared moon, silence finally fell. The surviving Andrian ships retreated, battered and broken. Ilara and Keth stood together, bruised but unbroken. "We've won today," Ilara said, voice tired but fierce. "But this is just the beginning." Keth looked at her, the weight of his own emotions reflected in his eyes. "Then we face the future, together." A gentle breeze stirred the glowing crystals, casting shimmering light over two figures bound by fate, defying the darkness with something far more powerful than any weapon: hope. The battle scars on the moon's surface were deep, etched like a reminder of all that had been lost and all that had been fought for. But amid the rubble and silence, a new beginning stirred. Ilara stood atop a ridge overlooking the camp, the pale light of dawn casting long shadows. Around her, humans, Varelians, and even former Andrians worked side by side, rebuilding not just their base, but the fragile trust they had forged. Keth approached quietly, his presence steady and calm. "The council will convene soon," he said, voice low but certain. "They will want answers and decisions." Ilara nodded. "We'll give them the truth. That peace is possible, if we dare to choose it." For the first time, Keth allowed himself to smile, a small but genuine curve of lips. "I never imagined that I would stand here, advocating for unity." "You've changed," Ilara said softly. He looked out at the horizon, eyes dark but clear. "Because you taught me how to feel." She reached for his hand, their fingers intertwining with a quiet strength born of shared sacrifice. The council chamber was a vast, ancient hall carved deep into the moon's core, illuminated by soft bioluminescent crystals that pulsed gently like a heartbeat. Leaders from the Varelians, humans, and Andrians gathered, their faces a mosaic of skepticism, hope, and fatigue. Ilara stepped forward, her voice carrying the weight of her experience. "We have seen the cost of endless war, but we have also seen what happens when we embrace understanding." Keth followed, his presence commanding. "The future demands more than weapons and strategy. It requires empathy and courage." A murmur rippled through the chamber, some voices wary, others quietly hopeful. Then the elder Varelian leader spoke. His expression was grave but thoughtful. "You have shown us something rare, a tear born not of pain, but of connection. That tear has bridged worlds." He turned to Keth. "You have risked everything, including your place among us, to bring this message. For that, you honor your people." The Andrian commander who had once doubted spoke next. "We have lost many to conflict, but perhaps it is time to seek a new path." The chamber fell silent, the weight of history pressing down. Ilara stepped back, watching as the leaders deliberated. Minutes stretched into hours, but finally, the consensus emerged. A treaty was drafted, not just of ceasefire, but of alliance, an agreement to share resources, knowledge, and most importantly, to listen. As the assembly adjourned, Keth turned to Ilara, eyes shining. "This is only the beginning, but I have faith now." She smiled. "Me too." That night, beneath the alien stars, the survivors gathered to celebrate. Fires flickered, laughter echoed, and music, human and alien, blended into a strange but beautiful harmony. Keth stood beside Ilara, watching the scene with something like awe. "You once asked me why I cried," he said quietly. Ilara looked at him. "And I told you it was okay to feel." He nodded. The tear was not just for loss, it was for hope. For the possibility that even in the darkest places, light can find a way. Ilara squeezed his hand. "That's what makes us human. That's what makes us more than our past." As the night deepened, the moon seemed to breathe, a living symbol of resilience, unity, and the first tear shed by an alien over a human. A tear that would echo across the stars for generations to come.